Yo, what's going on YouTube? We got a great video here today. We're comparing it to see who would win, a gorilla or a grizzly bear. Personally, I think a grizzly bear is going to win. But today, from TierZoo, we're going to see who actually would win. So I hope you enjoy this video. Leave a like on this video. Make sure you're subscribed for all my other kind of content. Let's go see who wins.
The Silverback gorilla and the grizzly bear. Two of the most fearsome builds in the game. Because they're not playable in the same servers, the question of which of these is more powerful, or specifically which one would win in 1v1 combat, is a common subject
I personally,
of
I think the grizzly bear is going to win. I don't see how the
Silverback
gorilla can win against the grizzly bear.
Of both of these powerful builds, and to determine which
Maybe
one
it's
would come out on
intelligence,
top in a
but
deathmatch.
I guess
Let's
too much
start with
power.
the gorilla. In my primate tier list video, I ranked the gorilla as S tier, and it was the only primate other than the human to get that top tier rank. And there's good reason for this. Just have a look at this thing's base stats. The gorilla is easily the most powerful of all the primates.
Of course.
With a power stat well beyond most mammal builds within its weight class. Its arms allow it to climb trees with ease, and keep in mind, they do this without investing in any of the perks which make climbing easier, like cling pads or hooked claws.
Okay.
No, gorillas do this on strength alone, and they still make it look
because they don't
easy.
have claws.
And
like
so it should go without
other
saying
animals.
that those arms can also toss most other players around like a ragdoll.
Yeah.
And can dish
And
out
they have
some
the strength for
serious
it, too.
damage in a short flurry of blows. Gorillas also have massive canine teeth, and although these are mostly for intimidation, they can act as an extra damage-dealing attack option if the situation calls for it. Mobility-wise, they move surprisingly quick given how short their back legs are. While not great at distance running, their burst movement potential is shockingly high.
It can't be that high.
Defensively, gorillas don't have much to talk about. Their thick hide and bulky muscles offer some protection,
But not a
with
lot.
only skin and fur covering their exterior, most attacks will be effective against them. Luckily, their large size gives them a pretty generous hit point pool, so they should be able to tank a decent amount of hits in a pinch. Stealth-wise, gorillas are above average. Their coloration works pretty well in dense forests, although not as well as true camouflage patterns would. Because they walk on their hands and feet rather than hooves, they can move much more quietly than most herbivores, although not quite as silently as builds with padded paws and retractable claws. And finally, intelligence-wise, gorillas are far above average.
This is where I
Their
think
complex social structure requires significant
gorilla has the
investment
best
in the
chance.
intelligence skill tree in order to unlock it. And in doing so, gorillas also gained access to basic
But if it's a
tool use
one-on-one,
and team tactics.
the bear is
The
gonna
most
win.
common tool use tactic seen in gorillas is the use of sticks and rocks
Yeah, they have-
in order to more effectively dig out termites from their mounds. Next, let's switch over to the brown bear. In my bear tier
Brown
list,
bear.
I rated the brown bear at
Not
the low
grizzly?
end of S tier. Taking a look at its stats, we can immediately see just how overpowered this thing is. Although not quite as powerful as the polar bear, it's still one of the strongest carnivorous mammal builds in the entire game. One of the few that is able to take down builds like the moose, bison, and elk solo. Its power stat is just crazy high.
And it has
mostly
good
due to the
intelligence,
insane
too, though.
damage a bear can
And
dish out using its
defense.
claw
Look at
swipe
that. There
attack.
is no competition.
It's not uncommon for a single swipe from a grizzly to one-hit most players, as it deals both blunt force damage and slashing damage in no small amount. Unlike the gorilla, bears
What'd that
damage
say?
and slashing damage in no small amount.
The man gets up and walks away safely.
Unlike the gorilla, bears also regularly use their teeth in combat, rather than just for intimidation, and in this aspect they excel as well. Defensively, the brown bear is quite sturdy.
Way
It has
sturdier.
thick, loose skin, similar to the honey badger,
Bro's just
which
shaking
allows
it.
it
You
to
see it?
absorb serious blows without taking too much damage to their vitals.
Get off
And
me,
with an
he
HP
said.
stat similar to the gorilla, even if their opponents do score a critical hit, it's unlikely to mean an immediate game over. Stealth-wise, brown bears fare a little worse than the gorilla.
They don't need
Bears
stealth,
may not
though.
stick out that much visually, but they are some of the smelliest builds in the entire game, to the point where their odor often gives away their position long before they're detected via eyesight. Luckily for the brown
Interesting.
bear, its incredible movement speed and endurance can allow it to close the distance on fleeing players, even if they get a head start fleeing from the
Yeah, so far, the only thing the gorilla has over the bear is intelligence. That's it. There's no way this is going to be
bear's
anywhere
scent.
close.
With a top speed roughly similar to a horse, very few builds can reliably escape a charging bear, especially given that bears can climb without
climb.
issue as well.
Yeah.
For those keeping track, this puts the bear's stats pretty much all either above or equal to the gorillas with the exception of stealth. Of
Stealth
course,
and
there's one stat
intelligence.
we still haven't discussed yet, the bear's intelligence. When it comes to the gorilla versus grizzly debate, one thing that's often brought up is that the gorilla should be able to use its intelligence to easily outsmart the
It doesn't
bear
have that
and
kind of
gain a significant
intelligence,
upper
though.
hand. Unfortunately for the gorilla, I vehemently disagree with this assessment.
Right.
Not because gorillas aren't smart, but because bears are not dumb.
Oh.
A common quote you hear from human park ranger builds is that there's a great deal of overlap between the intelligence of the smartest bears and the dumbest humans, to the point where designing an effective bear-proof storage container is often impossible because it will also keep out a good number of humans it was meant to be used by. Bears are the
That's
most
kinda
intelligent of all carnivoran builds, smarter than cats, dogs, weasels, foxes, seals, and hyenas. Their giant brains are a necessity in order to memorize key points of interest across their vast territories, and for them to strategize how to access the best quality loot.
Mission
This
passed.
isn't to say the grizzly bear is going to invent some
Nunchucks.
galaxy
Oh,
brain
jeez.
gorilla trap on the spot or anything, but neither is the
nunchucks.
gorilla. Gorillas are incredibly intelligent builds for sure, but their intelligence manifests in their complex social dynamics and their tool use. In this scenario, it's 1v1, so the social dynamics is a non-factor.
Right.
That just leaves their tool use, and in this regard, I think most players drastically overestimate the gorilla's abilities.
It's not gonna happen.
Gorillas are not supreme bushcraft weaponsmiths. In fact, their use of weapons at all is almost non-existent in the gorilla player base. They will use rocks to more efficiently access insect larvae. But as for personal defense, the only strategy gorillas
They
have
grab and
access
throw.
to is the intimidation-based technique of tossing debris in an
Which could
adversary's
work on a
general
bear.
direction. When
Unless-
done in groups, this is extremely effective, and is often how a party of gorillas will ward off an approaching leopard in their natural ecosystem. But 1 versus 1 versus a bear, there is no way this would be enough to deter an attack. The bear's own high intelligence would give it a high chance to resist the intimidation effect. And once
Dang.
the bear has closed the distance,
caught that.
the bear is winning this fight at least 95% of the time. The gorilla would need not one, but several critical hits in a row to successfully take down a bear.
Yep.
Meanwhile, the bear would only need a few good bites and swipes before it's game over for the gorilla. So ultimately, that's how I think this matchup would go.
I called it.
Admittedly, I think it's a bit unfair to set up
think
a
it's
scenario
very
where the
unfair.
gorilla's most powerful ability is taken off the table,
How does
but the
he
bear
keep
remains
this
completely
video
untouched.
going for so long, though?
But that's the downside of investing in team tactics.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever find yourself caught off guard with no allies nearby, you
How
might lose
many
battles that you
gorillas will it take to defeat a bear? That's probably what the rest of this video is going to be about.
should otherwise at least have a fighting chance in. If you find this analysis unsatisfactory, we can approach it another way, which would be to take a look at their matchup spread and see if we can find
maybe
any
not.
easy comparisons. While gorillas and bears never encounter each other in the wild and have
Right.
no experience fighting each other, both the gorilla and the brown bear need to contend with big cats. While obviously not in North America, on other servers, brown bears actually sometimes share hunting territory with the tiger. This is the largest big cat build in existence, one which is powerful enough to, on rare occasion, take down
Oh, look at the
rhinos and
kitty
elephants
cat.
solo. Matchups
one
between
are the
bears
best?
and tigers tend to be pretty even. While there are recorded instances of tigers defeating bears and bears defeating tigers, generally these matchups tend to end in stalemates where neither player is truly defeated. However, when we take a look at the gorilla's matchup spread against its most common big cat opponent, the leopard, we see that the gorillas actually tend to lose this matchup.
Leopards are smaller,
are
though.
far less powerful than tigers, yet nonetheless, even a leopard can score kills on gorillas. I think this is more a function of the
They're more
difference in the
stealthy,
bear
though.
and gorilla's defensive stats than its offensive stats. Even with its above
Are they
average
going
constitution
head-to-head, though?
stats,
That's-
the gorilla's low defenses make it too much of a glass cannon. And in a massive slugfest fight like the subject of this video, the inability to absorb a lot of damage is
course.
an absolutely crippling
Yeah.
disadvantage.
I think we all knew
No
that.
joke, I get this question at least once a week.
Really?
It's to the point where if someone DMs me saying, I have a question, I just answer, the bear wins. And like 50% of the time, that's all they need. Now you
course
know
the bear
why.
wins.
Hopefully you see me as an unbiased and trustworthy source for these sorts of analyses. But trustworthy sources are hard to come by these
Ad
days.
moment.
When new controversial debates crop
gonna
up,
skip it?
it can be difficult to tell whether the version of a story
But anyway, I think we all knew who was going to win that from the start. It was going to be the bear, obviously. But the real question I have for you at the end of this video, would you rather be in the woods with a bear or a man? See you in the next video.
Now you mad. Now you mad, nerd. Why you